Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome. I am really excited to be diving into this topic today, all about finding and following your purpose. So, if you're catching this, those of you who are hopping on right now, please say hello, drop some hearts, let me know that you're here. If you are catching this later on the comment replay, I would love to know who's watching it, and please interact. I want this to be as connected as possible. And again, if you're catching it later on the replay, I will come back, answer questions. Also, these are great questions for me to create future videos or recordings about. So ask away and I will support however I can. With that said, let's get into this, okay? I want to talk about becoming magnetic to your dreams and calling in those big dreams that are in your heart, those beautiful desires that you have that maybe currently feel so far away. So if you're like me and you're someone who has so many visions and goals for your life, but sometimes it gets overwhelming because there's so many things that you're wanting to create and call in, or maybe it gets overwhelming because your mind isn't on board and you're not sure how you can do it, or if you're ready yet, you don't have the confidence to believe that it's possible. Whatever kind of block or limitation is in the way for you, we're going to dive into how to break through that so that you can create a beautiful, magical life for yourself, okay? I want to share first that one of the biggest things and one of the ways that this transformed in my own life was by doing the identity shifting work. So that's going to be a key of today's recording around the version of you who already has your dreams, the version of you who already is aligned with their purpose. That version of you is showing up in the world in a very different way than the version of you who is stuck in lack or confusion or disbelief, right? Two different identities. So I want you to keep that in mind as I continue moving forward, and keep reflecting on which version are you showing up as in each moment. Because at the beginning, it can be really challenging to stay on board and to be like consistently in that future version of you. But if you practice it and if you continue to be aware and you continue to try to jump into that future identity and shift into what they would be thinking, acting, feeling, then you're going to get there so much faster. Okay? And that's exactly how I manifested one of my biggest life dreams, and I would say a really huge key to my purpose, which was working with elephants and spending almost like 9 months living in Sri Lanka in the jungle, working at an elephant sanctuary. It was one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had. They are such gentle giants and animals that I loved since I was a little girl, and I always dreamed about working with them. And I believe that our purpose has been within us since day one. I believe we incarnated with a purpose, and there's no measurement, there's no magnitude of like what's big or what's small or what's important or simple. I talk to people sometimes and they feel like, well, I don't have this like huge passion in my life right now, and I don't know if my purpose is massive. Maybe my purpose feels more connected to healing things within my family or starting a family of my own. That's a big freaking purpose. That still is important. That still is so special and so needed. So as I continue sharing today, please keep in mind that there is no such thing as a small or a big purpose. And it's really about following your highest excitement and your alignment in each moment. I've shared this so many times before about how many different purposes I thought I had throughout my life. Years ago, I thought my purpose was to teach yoga because I love doing yoga, and I found it really healing after my car accident. I also felt like my purpose was to work with animals because that was a big passion of mine, and so that's why I volunteered with monkeys and wildlife in Guatemala. It's why I ended up working with elephants in Sri Lanka. and doing a lot of other animal welfare studies and courses. And eventually, with no real original plan of getting here, my purpose, or part of my purpose, became coaching and empowering others with mindset tools and with the healing work so that they could also create the life that they wanted. So your purpose changes as you do. And I think that's actually a beautiful thing, because I think there's a lot of pressure around finding your one true purpose. And for myself, at least, you can let me know in the comments if you relate, because actually I'd be super curious if this is something any of you struggle with. But for a while I used to feel pressure around my purpose, as if I could make the wrong decision. And what if I mess up? What if I choose the wrong path? What if this isn't for me? Or what if this isn't what I'm meant to do for the rest of my life? And there was a lot of fear around that. But as I navigated through all those different pathways that I thought were my optimal purpose, I realized that every single one of those was like a piece of the puzzle. And every single one of those things was a passion and a deep desire I had in each moment. And the best thing I could do for myself was to honor that. And so I had to create the confidence, I had to create the beliefs, I had to step into a new identity in each moment to be like, this is who I am now. I'm working with elephants. Then I had to become the identity of the yoga teacher. And I went and studied in India and did my certification and started practicing that. And then it was the identity of running a hostel and teaching yoga and thinking that that was my ultimate purpose. Like, I'm going to travel the world and do this forever, and this will be how I give back and how I help people and empower them. And then soon that fell through. And the purpose was starting my first business importing paper products out of Sri Lanka, made out of elephant poo, and donating back to the elephants. And I thought, this is my purpose. And eventually it became the quantum healing, the hypnosis work, the online courses, the social media presence, and influencing, supporting people through that. And that was my purpose, right? So every single time I gained something, like I said, the piece of the puzzle, I gained something that was necessary at the time, something that supported me and felt good, but it guided me to the next step. Okay? So when you're uncovering your purpose, one of the best things I like to focus on is what brings you joy. Because as I was starting to say, and I went on a side tangent, your purpose is born within you. It's the things that feel good. It's the things that light you up. So you can't go wrong if you're following that, I don't believe. And as you do that, as you take those steps, you'll start to uncover the next step and the next step and the next passion and the next pathway that you want to go on. And it's going to ultimately, one day, lead you to this place where you're looking back and you can see all these moments and see how they all actually added up. I felt like, at one point, I felt like I was making major mistakes or failing because I gave up on being the yoga teacher. It didn't feel good to me anymore. It didn't feel aligned. It felt like I was forcing it and not actually excited about it. And so I left that behind. And to some people that looked like a failure. But for me, it was so clear and so deep within my heart and my soul that that chapter was closing and that I was meant for something different. So a lot of times I see people being afraid to leave one chapter behind, when in reality, something even more beautiful, even more wonderful is waiting on the other side for them. That can even be with your current career, your current job. Maybe you started it and you felt like, this is the path, this is what I want to do. It could be with your, studies, your university path or career or college career, right? Thinking like, I have so many students who go down this path thinking this is what I'm supposed to study, this is what I'm supposed to do. this is what my teachers told me, or my parents told me, or my friends or society told me, so I'm going to go do it. And they create an identity around that study or around that career. And they start to get near the end, either finishing the degree or starting their work career, their 9 to 5 in it, and they realize, like, this fucking sucks. This is not at all what I want to be doing. How did I get here? And I can't even tell you the number of times I've had people say, like, it feels like I've been driving on this train, going down this one track for a really long time, and I don't even know how I got here. But I'm not where I actually want to be. I feel like I'm at a destination that someone else chose for me. It's not my own. And I've just been moving and going through the motions to get here. So if this is you, this is where the reprogramming work, this is where the identity shifting can be your saving grace and can be like the really fast turnaround. And I have an incredible training masterclass on this where I share my 3-step process, where I share exactly how to reprogram your mind for success. It's in the link on my page to check that out if you want more help with this. I'm not going to go fully into it because it's a beautiful, life-changing training on its own. But this reprogramming work is what allows you to go from going through the motions, riding the train track that someone else told you to be on, following the path that you think is your purpose or you think is meant for you, but then you start taking it and you realize it isn't, and being able to clear out the beliefs, because ultimately at the end of the day, the beliefs that led you on that path were not your own. If it no longer feels good, if it no longer feels aligned, that's because your soul is calling you elsewhere. But if you can't listen to that, if you can't trust that because you're feeling so stuck in your logical mind or in the box that you've been put in of what you should be doing, then you're going to continue living on autopilot and living from those beliefs and living from that outdated version of you. Or as I often refer to, that outdated programming, that outdated software, the software that's led you to a life that, as I said, isn't really your own. It doesn't feel good. So when we uncover that, and it's like a deconditioning process of let's clear these beliefs out. Let's clear out these limitations. Let's clear out the things that make me feel so strongly connected to this identity, so strongly connected to this path that I no longer want to be on. Let's clear that out. Let's remove that so that you can come back home to who you truly are. And when you have the space to do that and you have the willingness, the openness to listen, you will be flooded with the guidance, flooded with the exact steps that you're meant to take. You'll know without a shadow of a doubt, like, this is what I want to go do now. This is what feels good to me. This is what I'm meant for. And from that place, when the deconditioning has taken root, and that's step 1 of the process I guide my students through. Once you've done that, it becomes a lot easier to tap into the rebuilding phase and really truly feeling confident. Which I think it's hard to feel confident in your purpose and your path if no one around you has done something similar. I'll speak for myself, I'll speak for my students and all the clients I've worked with over the years. But for myself especially, no one had done what I wanted to do. No one around me had dropped out of university or college, had gone solo traveling the world, had started their own business, importing things especially. They definitely weren't importing elephant poo, that's for sure. But also, no one around me was starting a coaching business or online business at the time that I knew of. Obviously, there were thousands of people doing that in the online space and around the world, but no one in my immediate circle. So I felt very isolated, I felt very alone, and I had so much potential to give into doubt because the environment around me wasn't supporting or wasn't matching and reflecting proof of success in that path. Just like I had no one around me who had worked with elephants to reflect to me that my dreams of working with elephants could come true. So all these things that I desired, the life of travel, of impact, of freedom, of giving back, of working with animals, of empowering women, no one in my immediate circle was doing anything along those lines. And that made me doubt myself. That made me question, like, am I in the right place? Does this actually work? Can I actually achieve these things? Who am I to even think that this is possible? And that imposter syndrome is the number one limitation or block, I would say, to people actually going after it. Because it's so easy to give into the old stories and to give into the who am I to do that? And that's where the identity shift comes in. So we're going to bring this full circle here. Because your past identity is based on your past experiences. My past identity at that time, the version of me who was saying, who am I to work with elephants? Who am I to be a yoga teacher and be a good yoga teacher and run a hostel? And who am I to start a coaching business or build up a social media presence or write a best-selling book, whatever the story is, or make a certain amount of income, whatever that story was? Who am I to do that, right? That was coming from my small self. My small self. It's coming from my wounds, my traumas, my insecurities, the beliefs that the people around me in society planted into my subconscious mind from as little or as young as I was born, as soon as I was born. My higher self was the version of me, or is the version of me, who transcends limitation. So to her, it's like, yeah, of course. Why not? Why couldn't you do that? This is what you're meant for. It's lined up for you. It's waiting. Why are you blocking it? Like, this is destined. The higher self has no separation, and the higher self has already achieved it or already received it, is already living it. They're already there. So those are two very different identities, right? And the magic comes when you align with the future identity, or as I call, the higher self. Your higher self is who is magnetic to your dreams. Your lower self is repellent. Your lower self is blocking your dreams. Your lower self is like all the reasons, all the reminders, all the excuses, all the beliefs why it's not possible. So if you give your lower self power, you will never, ever get where you want to be. And it's not like a fear-based thing, that's just a fact. Because the lower self is stubborn. They're very outspoken, and they feel very strong because they've been ingrained for a long time, right? But that doesn't mean that they're actually true. That doesn't mean they know the truth. That doesn't mean they're right. It just means they've spent a lot of time repeating themselves, so they feel like they're right. They feel like they know the truth. And yet your higher self is actually the ultimate truth, the full, unbounded, limitless expression of you. So when you tap into your higher self, you are magnetic to what you want because you are in the vibration, in the frequency of already having what you want. You are embodying that version of you already now, which brings it all in. Not only does it attract it, but it helps you show up from that higher frequency, from the confidence that you so deeply desire, right? The confidence to follow your purpose doesn't come from your small self. The confidence to follow your purpose comes from an identity shift, a version of you, whether it's a mental story or an image or energetic attachment to your higher self. It's the identity of like, this is who I am. Of course, this is going to work. And so I'm taking the action from this place. I would love to know if this resonates, if this makes sense. If you have questions, please let me know. This is a concept that, my legs are getting sore. This is a concept that I really love and I love talking about, but I want to make sure it makes sense, right? Because to some people, the higher self concept is very new. To some people, it's very resonant, or they've been working with it for a long time. But these two different identities determine the realities that we create. And I want to take this a next step, because your small self, which is likely the version that's holding you back, that you don't want to be stuck in, that identity probably sees itself in your old career. So when I think about before I quit my job to travel the world solo, I dropped out of university to go do that, quit my job to start my coaching business, before I made all these shifts to become a new version of me and step into that identity, my small self identified herself as a 9-to-5 employee. She didn't believe she could be her own boss and be successful. She didn't believe she was good enough to achieve the things that she wanted. My small self had this image that she was just an employee and that her role was to stay in line and take orders and follow what she was told, right? It's kind of the good girl programming that a lot of women have. Be the good girl and listen, say yes, stay in line, do what you're told, don't ask questions, don't speak up, don't rock the boat, or step off the path, right? That's a good girl programming. That's also very much the small self identity of believing that this is all we're capable of. So if you're living from that place, I don't want to keep leading that way. If you're living from that place, that's a very different image than the identity who's like already a successful boss, or already a best-selling author, or already traveling the world, or insert your dreams and your purpose here. If you had already done the thing, your level of confidence would be up here. Your belief in yourself would probably be up here. You'd be looking around like, yeah, I already did it, right? The level of doubt and insecurity or weirdness that your small self has doesn't exist when you've done it. It only exists right now while you stay in it. Does this make sense? And that's why the work is so much in deconditioning that, clearing that out, stepping out of that, and aligning with the future self, the higher self, the version of you who's already doing it. As I said before, I've got an amazing masterclass on this, all about the identity shifting to step into that. You can check that link out on my page, or the link will be dropped around this video if you're watching this on the replay. But when I think of even like one of my previous students, she watched the masterclass, she went through Thrive, which is my 3-month program all about this. And at that time, she was an engineer student. She had just graduated. Her whole identity was in this pathway. Her parents wanted her to take this degree. Her parents wanted her to become an engineer. She had a 6-figure-a-year job lined up. Everything in her mind and her self-image was that, like, this is who she is, right? She follows the programming. She follows what her parents tell her to do. She gets the degree, gets the job, stays in this path. But she was miserable. And she hated going to work every day. She hated the thought of spending the rest of her life here. And even though she had just in the process of graduating, she decided, I don't want to be that version of me. I've always dreamed of starting my own clothing business, and I want to feel confident enough to go make that happen. And want to be the version of me who's like going after her dreams and feeling empowered and living her best life. Not the life that she thinks she has to, but now she's depressed and anxious all the time. So she made a really conscious decision to shift identities and be, this is who I want to be now. So I'm going to make the changes. And as she went through the Thrive program, doing all the tools and the steps I teach in there, she quit her job, confidently faced her parents, which I've been there before, and it's scary to set those new boundaries or speak up for what you truly want to those that you love and who have kind of been navigating you on another path, right? Spoke up to them, let them know what she was doing. She started her clothing business, began importing clothes in, and within 6 months, she had hit $250K in sales in her clothing business. 6 months. From making the decision to leave the old identity and leave the path that had been carved out for her and choose the path that she wanted instead. And that made such a huge difference. And now, this is 1 year since she finished the program, she's on track for her first $1 million year. And that just shows the power of alignment when you follow your path. Every single time I've followed my purpose and my highest excitement and the thing that feels good to me, even if it doesn't make sense and my logical mind can't understand how it's going to happen, but I know that this is what I'm called to do and it feels much better and it's like it's meant for me, the universe will move mountains to support you in that. And we have a loving God who will do everything to support you in creating that, because that is what you're here for. You're not here to sit behind a desk and work at a 9-to-5 that you hate for the rest of your life just to pay the bills and barely get by. You weren't created for that. You were created for something very highly specific, and your excitement, your passions, your purpose is in that. So you are always going to be supported in following that if you take the steps first yourself. And if you take the actions to align with what you truly want. It doesn't mean the path's going to be easy. There's still going to be bumps and roadblocks and challenges, always. But there's bumps and roadblocks and challenges if you stay where you are. And if you continue operating from the small self and in the identity that actually isn't even you. So I know for me, even though this journey has been filled with a lot of ups and downs and unknowns, I would choose it 1,000 times over again, because I'm living in alignment with what excites me. I'd rather navigate a stress or a struggle or a challenge, but be working towards what I love, than navigate a stress, a struggle, a challenge, and hate everything about my life, and hate the career I'm in, or the people I'm working for, or the toxic environment, or the fact that my income is limited and capped, right? That I'm trading time for money and draining myself in something I hate. That is not purpose. But when I follow what is purposeful and what's lighting me up, and I'm open to the guidance and support, the path continues to present itself for me. It continues to light up and show me the way. And that's exactly how I created the career working with elephants. It's exactly how I manifested that. It's exactly how I started my coaching business. And how I attracted the book deal to co-author a book that ended up being a bestseller, which was like a lifelong dream of mine to have best-selling books. And now I get to write more, which is exciting. So it's about following your bliss, constantly following the things that light you up, and building the confidence, building the mindset, building the beliefs, building the identity that you can hold yourself in that and know that it's going to work, and trust that this is for you, and stay aligned to that vision no matter what's showing up in your physical reality. That is why the inner work is always the most important thing you can do, and it comes before everything else. Because even if it's not there immediately, the inner always creates the outer. Always. And that's how you get to magnetize it, because the more you just start to embody the future version of you, the more you start to embody your higher self, the more naturally it is drawn to you, because it's just the essence of who you're being. It's just the truth of who you are. So there's actually nothing to pretend. There's nothing to force. There's no need to stress. It's just you being the version of you who already is. So it was me being, if I already am a yoga teacher who's traveling the world and working at different hostels and getting to combine my love of yoga with my love of travel, how would I feel? What would I do? What would I say? Where would I show up? Like, where would I put myself out there? What jobs would I be applying for? Right? How would I introduce myself? If I already am the successful coach, or even when I started filming my first videos for YouTube and my first Instagram stories, I was terrified. I was so insecure. I was so stuck in beliefs that my voice didn't matter, so stuck in smallness and feeling insignificant. I had so much trauma, and I was terrified and so judgmental of myself on those first videos. I can still remember my first Instagram stories. They're like hilarious now. They're terrifying. But I knew that the version of me who was successfully speaking in front of millions someday would have to get over that fear. So I clicked record. And even though it was cringy, and even though I didn't know what I was saying and I had no confidence in what I was talking about, I started to embody the future version of me. And I started to act as if. And I said to myself, if I want to achieve this thing, then I need to become her now. So the version of me who's doing this successfully, she would be showing up on camera every single day. And she'd be confident about it. So I might not have the confidence yet, but what I can do is show up every single day. And imagine that this is just normal. Imagine this is my everyday thing, that it's easy, that I do it all the time. And shift my mental image of myself, shift into that identity. And by doing that, that is what allowed me to continue even when it wasn't easy. That's what allowed me to do my first attempt, was a 60-day challenge of showing up on Instagram stories every day for 60 days. And again, the first week was like so cringy. Second week got a little bit better. Third week, even more better, right? Still seems like I'm very far away from where I am now, but I would have never gotten here if I hadn't started that day. If I hadn't started at square one. If I had let the small self hold me back, then absolutely nothing in my life would have ever been created or achieved. So it's truly about which side are you going to empower? Which side are you going to choose? What reality do you really, really want? And how can you become your future self now? How can you become that aligned version of you now? I promise when you start doing the work, it feels like magic. It's a little bit tough at first because it requires you to get out of your comfort zone, and it requires you to stretch who you think you are, what you believe is possible, for you, what you believe is possible for your life in general. Growing up in Canada in the middle of like a barren wasteland. Shout out to where I'm from. That's what I believe it to be. Growing up in the middle of like the iciest, coldest part of Canada and having a lifelong childhood dream of working with elephants. Everyone just thought that was crazy. And had I given that power, I would have never even tried. I would have never believed it was possible. I would have never pushed my comfort zone to go after it. But I wasn't willing to accept those limitations. And I just knew that if I wanted to work with elephants, I was going to have to make changes. I was going to have to create new stories about what was possible for me and do the different things, whether that was building the confidence to take the solo trip and go there, trusting and having such deep faith that it would work out, putting myself out there, applying for the jobs, working super hard to save the money so I could go do that and live there and sustain it for a long time, continue holding the vision even when things weren't working out and when everyone around me was doubting me and saying it couldn't happen, right? Infinite reasons I could have given up. But when you know you really, really deeply want something, I truly believe it is your duty to hold that vision and not let anything hold you back from going after it and creating it. And it's when you're embodying that fully that you truly are magnetic. Because you're being a vibrational match. If you can fully see yourself, if you think right now of what your desire is, what your current big dream is that you're wanting to call in, or the bigger purpose and vision you have for your life, whatever is coming into your mind right now, I'm going to invite you to visualize that for a second and allow yourself to like really bask in this vision, this purpose. And if you can visualize that and see or feel that like this is what you're meant to do. It's put here for a reason. And it is your duty to align with it, to create it, to attract it, to magnetize it in. Then that helps you immediately shift out of maybe a more small place or a more doubtful place and start to act as if and embody, okay, if I know this is my truth, if I know this is what's meant for me, and I know that I'm magnetic to it, how would I go for it? What's the one step I would take today or the one action I would take today? And then how do I continue to act from that future version of me? Every single time I invested in myself was a perfect example, whether it was, taking the first solo trip and, everyone being so scared about me going off traveling by myself. And I was like, the version of me, the dreams I've always had are to travel. So like, I can't stay over here. I can't have both, right? So which one is stronger? Which one do I want more? I've got to find a way to create this ultimately. And every single investment in every single business coach or healing certification or mentorship, it's like they always felt like stretches. They always felt outside the comfort zone. There always was possibility and definitely always a lot of limiting beliefs or doubts from my smaller self saying like, don't do this, or that's scary, or what if it doesn't work? But I knew that the version of me who already had the desire, or the version of me who was living in alignment with her purpose, she would have taken the step. She would have taken the action. She wouldn't have been living in lack and scarcity or fear. She would have known that the abundance was her birthright, that the abundance was coming in, or the success was coming in, or that she'd be supported in going after her purpose. Those are belief shifts between the two different identities. And the biggest thing that holds so many people back, from my opinion and from working with hundreds of clients, is that they do not give power to the future identity. They continue to take action and give power from the small, lower identity, the past identity. So if your past identity is based on fear, and I don't want to make a mistake, I don't want to fail, so I'm just going to hold myself back and stay here a little bit longer, that's never going to get you to that next step, right? It's a totally different belief system than the empowered version of you who's like, I can navigate this. I can figure this out. I know that this is what is needed to get here. I know the version of me who already has the desire or is already living her purpose would have done this. It would have been a stepping stone. So I'm going to do it. It's kind of like there's no room for ifs, ands, or buts, because you know this is a requirement to get there. And I think that's where I want to end this, unless there's any questions. Because I could give more examples of times in my life that I had to stretch out of the small self. And I had to stretch past the old beliefs, the limiting beliefs, the fears, the doubts, the traumas, the insecurities. But at the end of the day, it is the decision of which version of you do you want to be. When you honor what you truly want, there's no room for anything that isn't a match. When you honor that this is what I'm here for, then anything that doesn't align with it, it has to go. Right? You can't have both. They don't exist in the same reality. So as long as we continue being in the old reality, we can't step into the new one. And the sooner we step into the new one and let the old fall away, the faster we magnetize and align with what we truly want and what is truly meant for us. It's like a catch-22. They go hand in hand. And I think it's really empowering because you realize that as long as you continue to go after what you really want, and as long as you continue to honor your highest excitement and what feels most purposeful to you in each moment, because as I started out this whole conversation, your purpose can change, and most likely your purpose will change many times. It'll probably always have common themes. My purpose always had common themes of what I thought I was meant to do at the time. Always came from like service or giving back or helping others or helping the animals. It had a common core theme, but the avenue or channel changed a ton of times. And I know it's going to keep changing as I go. But as long as you are honoring your highest excitement and letting that purpose in the moment drive you, then there's no room for the doubts and the small self to hold you back. Because as I said, you can only be one. You can't be both. Then you're going to keep taking the steps and magnetize it very quick. And to finish this off, as I've said, I have an amazing masterclass all about this to help you shift the identities to step into the identity who's already living it. This is truly how I've seen so many people collapse time, myself included, but so many incredible experiences of doing the unthinkable or impossible, because we're no longer giving anything to the old self and we're like, let's be over here. Let's show up from this version of me. Let's show up from this identity. Let's take action as though success is inevitable. And I'm so incredibly supported in doing this. And when you do that, you truly open yourself up to an entirely new reality of so many possibilities, so many potentials, and you get to honor yourself in the process, which I think is your greatest gift to yourself. So I hope you give that to yourself. I hope you go after the things that are lighting you up and calling you forward. And check out the masterclass if you want support in doing that. If you want to learn my exact process that has helped me and has helped hundreds of clients, I break it all down in there. It is on the link on my page or around this video. And it's going to show you how. It's going to tell you all about my 3-step Thrive program, which takes you through this even deeper. There's some incredible exclusive bonuses on the masterclass that you cannot find anywhere else that are going to also support you on the journey. And I cannot wait for you to step into all that you're here for and to go after it with confidence and with the beliefs of that deep inner knowing that this is what I'm here for, this is what I get to do. And in the meantime, until then, I'm sending lots of love, and I will talk to you very soon. Thank you for being here with me today.